Hello, podcast listener. This is your host with the most, JJ from JJ Meets World. Our episode today features Dr. Christopher Davenport. He's a botanist, and we talk about all things plants, the future of plants, technology that goes into it, evolution, what he thinks about bees. Plus, I give a nice little idea of how to remove a stain from a carpet and how it might lead you to a better life. All of this and so much more on today's episode of JJ Meets World. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode of JJ Meets World is brought to you by Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. Natalie has a proven track record to get your home sold faster and for more money. She is consistently focused on her clients' needs and wants throughout the entire process and make sure that they are well taken care of. If you're looking to buy or sell, reach out to Natalie today. On average, Natalie sells a home every 3.74 days. That's at least 2 a week. And last year, Natalie earned her clients on average over $4,000 above list price on their homes. And you don't have to take our word for it. Here's some of the great reviews Natalie has received. I was overwhelmingly impressed with Natalie and all the Hatch team. She was very responsive and responded to all of the emails within an hour. She gave great advice and encouragement from the listing and pictures, the offer, and all the closing details. The marketing team knew exactly how to promote my property, and I was pleased by how soon and easily my property received an offer. I was actually dreading selling my condo, and Natalie did such an awesome job that I felt like I really didn't need to do anything. The thing I most appreciated was that she really listened to what I wanted to do and respected my decisions. I would definitely recommend Natalie and all the Hatch Realty team. They made this process so wonderful. That was from Diane. So listen, if you're in the mood to buy or sell a home, give Natalie a call right now. You can reach her at 701-388-9338. Natalie, Natalie, at hatchrealtyfm.com, or you can go to livefargomorehead.com. That's livefargomorehead.com and find out some information. Huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring JJ Meets World.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
Carpet cleaning is the type of business that I always thought I'd really be good at.
Why is that?
Because there are clear expectations in carpet cleaning. You see a spot on the floor, your job is to remove it. But there's a deeper layer that the layman doesn't really understand when it comes to carpet cleaning, like how much dust you're taking out, whether or not you're soaking down to the pad and removing all the moisture from the pad. And there's a feeling of walking on a clean, wet, like damp carpet and seeing your footprints that feels a lot like being kind of like a god. But what I'm saying is you see your footprints leaving, and it's the only thing in this clean room. All the furniture's gone. Mm-hmm. You got an industrial fan trying to dry it out. And it gives really new perspective. And then you get to go in there and put the furniture down. And
something where it once was dirty, but now it is made new.
Right.
That feeling.
And there is also a great lesson to learn for mankind, which is sometimes stains can't be removed.
Ah, okay.
Sometimes you just will not be able to get rid of that stain.
Stain is too deep.
Too deep, too dark, too old.
Right. Sticky.
And you can work and work and work, and you should put in maximum effort. And even if 100% of your effort does not get rid of that stain, you know that you at least tried. Our guest today is Dr. Chris Davenport. He's a local botanist. We talk about plants, the future of plants. The tensions get a little high occasionally in this. He and I get a little bit combative. And I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about plants. And so this was a real education for me in this episode. And if you haven't listened to our previous episode about gardening, the aluminum geranium, you might want to go back and listen to that as well and really get your green thumb going with this series of episodes. But it's a fun topic, and maybe we'll inspire a future botanist.
Right.
There'll be something. In fact, he talks about how he gets into his passion, like getting a chemistry set as a kid. And
Right. This was one of those episodes where, after asking all these questions, I realized I had so many more questions to ask him on this topic that I didn't know about. And you, listener, if you think of a question you would have liked to have asked him, please, comment below this episode on Facebook, or comment on the Patreon post, or just email us at jjmeetsworld.com, and we'll get that question to him.
Yeah, and we also give Chris's contact, how to get a hold of him, at the end of this too. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode about botany.
JJ Meets World.
Welcome, Chris, to the JJ Meets World studios. We're excited to have you in here today and to talk about some botany and who you are. And I just watched last night the trailer for this McMillions documentary, and so I want to talk about it. Did you see the trailer for this at all?
No, I don't know what that is.
McDonald's did the Monopoly game for years and years and years, right?
Yeah.
And it was rigged. Not by Monopoly, but by the security company who was in charge of producing the pieces. So this one dude was taking it.
Yeah.
And so it's just filling my head right now with stuff like that. So, but if you haven't seen it, there's no point in really talking about it.
Well, I mean,
although I did just pretty much say what it is.
The game I remember playing the game quite a bit as a child and collecting the Monopoly pieces, and so that was certainly fun. So I think it's definitely something I think we, I like Monopoly. If you want to talk about it, we can talk about it.
Well, I just, the thing with the Monopoly pieces is I remember having I had a middle console in my car that was just full of them.
That's right.
But I never remember actually trading in one of the you want a free sandwich.
They always gave you just enough to come back and buy another Big Mac, I think is what it was, right? They wanted to get you on the hook for one more Big Mac. And so
I'm not a Big Mac fan. I mainly eat a quarter pounder with cheese if I'm going to eat a burger, but I like the number 9, the 2 cheeseburger.
Yeah.
And it shorted me the pieces that come on the Big Mac container. I'd only get the drink and the fry container ones.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, McDonald's planted a lot of seeds in our heads as children, I think, to continue to eat at McDonald's for the rest of our lives.
Right. Get you coming back.
And it's worked for sure. Definitely for me. What's interesting, I mean, it kind of ties into why I'm here a little bit, is they do have the, all these restaurants are doing the plant-based burgers right now, the Impossible Whopper and things like that. So it's kind of interesting to see. A little surprised that it's taken so long, because we've obviously had the technology, the science has been there to do it. But a lot of places I think they've been resistant because, the money's in the meat is what they say.
Have you tried the Impossible Whopper yet?
I did try it. And to be honest, having, had some of my own kind of alternative versions that we've made, I'm not sure that they've perfected it yet. I would say they've got some ways to go on the Impossible Whopper. But
the coloring
for the common person who's looking to get a hamburger that's plant-based, it's probably a good option for them.
Is something like an Impossible Burger, is that good for plants, or is that bad for plants in general?
Yeah, that's a good question. For plants, well, if I was the plant, it would be bad because I would be harvested, right? But for the plant industry, it's great, right? It's obviously creating more jobs for botanists. It is creating more, I think it's lending itself to more science. There's more research going into this and alternatives. I don't know that we fully understood the after effects of having these laboratories and, factories that are producing these and what that's going to do to our planet yet. Just like we're still learning now of what farms and these meat factories are doing to our planet. So that could be 20 years down the road. And at that point, we're already hooked on the Impossible Whopper. So we'll have to wait to see.
You know what I don't get it with the Impossible Whopper is they still put 2 pieces of cheese on it.
Yeah.
So we still require cows.
Yeah.
They say, this gets the dairy industry and the cattle industry is so bad because, they're pooping and all this stuff that's harming our planet. But we still need the cheese. Even though this is a plant-based Whopper, we still really haven't really cracked the nut on
We've heard it since elementary school. Plants don't poop.
Right.
And that's really, really important, especially for our planet.
That's not completely true.
Really?
There's a couple known cases out there of plants that do excrete waste out there. I know that.
Would you consider like aloe? Like when you crack open like a cactus?
That would be like a byproduct, okay. I think, when it's waste. You find that in plants that are usually, it's rare, but think of plants that are like the Venus flytrap, right? It's not necessarily above ground, so the normal person who might have something like that wouldn't see it, but if you were to unearth it.
Mm-hmm. So if you were to dig up underneath a Venus flytrap, there'd be some kind of...
Yeah, I don't know what,
a waste product.
It's funny to think about, but yeah, I mean, all plants give off something, right, underneath the soil, right? They're growing, their roots are growing, but what it looks like is different. And so...
Okay, so let's dial this back. First and foremost, how does someone decide to get into botany?
Well, I'm sure the journey is different for everyone. For me as a kid, I was really into all sorts of different things. And I remember for Christmas one year, my mom, I remember for Christmas one year, my mom and dad had gotten me a chemistry set as a kid. And which is funny, if you walk into any Walmart toy section now, you're not going to find a chemistry set, right? I think that probably that created more problems than scientists.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
But for me, the chemistry set was kind of the start of it, starting to play with things, creating things. I used to take the stuff out of the backyard and lay on the concrete slab by the table and, just try different stuff out. Sometimes I'd take chemicals and pour them on. I was looking for things to pour it on, that wasn't human flesh, I guess, myself, or like my sister. Sorry about that. And so I would actually go to my mom's garden and I'd grab like a couple tomatoes or a couple carrots.
Something that had kind of a life.
And an organic thing. Obviously ants, all kids play with ants with a magnifying glass. So it started with that. And what I started to notice was that different chemicals would affect plants completely different. I don't know, it just kind of sparked something in me and I was really interested in that. And ever since, just kind of wanted to eat up anything. So I really got into, as a kid, like my daughter now goes to the library and she loves dinosaur books. At that time I would go and just want to get books on plants, right? Anything on flowers, things like that to learn about it. So
was there a moment that your parents were able to recognize your early plant focus?
They probably thought it was just something I was into, right? They're like, boy, this kid really likes the Magic School Bus and science, right? He's really into that. But it was probably when I was in high school and I was really kind of getting into it. And I had my own greenhouse in high school. I asked my mom and dad if I could build my own greenhouse in the back shed. And so...
What did you typically grow?
A typical garden, things that we can get around here, seeds that you can get at your local Home Depot. But then I would start to actually, find some more rare seeds that I could try to grow through catalogs, almanacs. Obviously, being in North Dakota, there's a lot of farming communities. So there's different types of vegetable seeds out there that they're always playing around with. And so I would explore those items as I got a little bit older and even in college then. And obviously with the internet now, you can go online and there's whole communities of people that are trading seeds that they have, as they have spliced DNA for plants and they've gotten their seeds it's a whole community of trading that stuff.
So, but when you get this rare stuff, I mean, they're all different zones. So don't you need to have several different greenhouse settings to be able to grow them? They require different...
Yeah. I mean, being in North Dakota, we have obviously one zone set and ready. The cold tundra is here for us, but trying to recreate, a rainforest or even like an Arizona type environment is something you want to do. And when I was younger, I didn't quite have the budget to do all the different zones, but now that I'm older and have obviously some of the background of my schooling and things like that, and even through my work, I'm able to have a lot more to play with, which is nice.
So in our neck of the woods, I imagine botany must really have a focus on agriculture. So you're dealing a lot with things like GMOs.
It's had that for a lot, right? That's where I think it's been grounded in, is producing food and things like that. Like we were talking about, the Whopper and creating new types of bigger crops and things like that. But in the past 10, 15 years, it's gone way beyond that. I mean, we're looking at how can we use plants for other things. But, obviously the big thing right now is, can we grow, similarly, to what the meat industry is doing, can we grow meat? We're trying to find ways if we can grow vegetables that are
like shaped like meat, like when they grow
closer to meat, like, can I make an eggplant that's
got like a meaty inside type thing?
Exactly.
Because like I look at a pomegranate, and the inside of a pomegranate is very, very weird to me.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine us trying to get something that's a firmer inside so we can just put it in a grinder and force it into something else.
I'm sure that somebody could come up and do it. And a lot of times these large companies that, like the pomegranate industry, they've kind of perfected, like they want to make it so they're a little bit difficult to eat, and so that there's a lot of seeds in there and things like that, because they want it to be unique. They want it to, it's almost marketing, right? Your fruit is marketing. We all know that an orange is easy to peel, and they nailed that. The orange company nailed that. And that's why we all eat oranges all the time, right? And so I think it's just trying to differentiate.
Well, I thought that I read this I was at the Frying Pan the other day reading tidbits, and
tidbits.
There was a tidbit about how just like how we say Kleenex to mean tissue, that orange is not the actual fruit; it's just the brand name. But we're all just used to the orange brand name,
right? Like a pomelo.
I was really fascinated by that. I don't even know the actual name for an orange. So how did that happen? What is the actual name for an orange?
I mean, that you could apply that knowledge to almost any type of fruit or vegetable or plant for that matter.
Wow,
right?
We've been calling all these things the wrong thing,
right,
in regular life.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, most of them have an actual scientific Latin name that we give them, and something like an orange is maybe a category or a bucket of plants. Lettuce, if you go into the farmer's market, there's a whole bunch of different types of lettuces available, but it goes beyond even those kind, right? Things like there's lettuce that grows on trees, for instance. There's lettuce that grows on bushes, but we don't, the common grocery store shopper is not comfortable with a lot of the changes and the way that we've grown as with some of this stuff. And it's all about introducing slowly, going back to the Impossible Whopper, right? Like that technology, we could have done that 20 years ago.
So here's a question. So iceberg lettuce.
Yeah.
How does that get its name? Because I know that ice is horrible. Like a freeze will kill an entire crop
really
with leafy
bad.
green.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. The iceberg lettuce initially came about from the group of people that created that particular, strain of the lettuce, right? Obviously there's scientists all across the globe that are doing it, but these guys, they were up more north, up in Canada, and I think that they were at the time doing all sorts of testing on vegetables and what freezing temperatures do. And that particular seed, if I'm correct, happened while they were out on their base, which was on it was the I want to say the Tetron. The Tetron was the name of their base out there, and it was on actually a small iceberg. And that was kind of a thing everybody was talking about, like, what's going on the iceberg? What are those guys up to, And we knew that they had a lot of things happening, but when that lettuce came out of there, I think it really changed the salad industry for sure.
Oh, I think you're absolutely correct.
I tell you what, I guarantee you that thing put Soup Plantation on the map. You wouldn't have these salad bars as a restaurant today if there wasn't,
It's a real generational thing too, because most of our parents see things in terms of before iceberg lettuce and after iceberg lettuce. A lot of people say it's the best thing since sliced bread. They're literally talking about iceberg lettuce.
It's funny, similarly in the botany industry, especially within agriculture, we say it's the best thing since iceberg lettuce. So, and a lot of technology has kind of evolved and things. And again, there's so many things that I could tell you guys that is like available and ready and interesting things, vegetables that, sometimes you walk through a grocery store and you see a vegetable that you're like, what is that thing? I've never seen that before. Just one item, right? And it's maybe from some weird island off of Hawaii or something.
That's interesting that a botanist would even have that reaction. I mean, we must be making new stuff all the time.
Oh yeah. There's, tons of stuff out there that is just not on the shelves yet from a food standpoint. Right. All sorts of items that, again, and we're introducing things slowly to people until the general public's ready for it.
It's actually perfect that you're here, man. You could help settle an argument that JJ and I have been having for a long time.
Sure.
So tomatoes, it's the long-standing argument of whether they are a fruit or a vegetable.
Yeah.
JJ thinks they're fruits. I think they're vegetables. I've heard things like, culinarily they're one thing versus another. So, where do you stand in that divide? And what other food items are we getting that actually that they're kind of ambiguous, amorphous like that?
Well, the reason, this is funny and it's not going to really give you guys the answer you want, but the tomato, the reason why it's so difficult is that it is technically both. And it's because it's been grown both ways. We've seen tomatoes grow above ground on bushes. We've seen them grow in trees like fruit. We've seen them grow under the earth like potatoes. There's a couple different strands from some of my colleagues out there that are working on tomatoes that grow underwater, almost like seaweed does. There's tomatoes that grow, obviously, we've seen, and anyone who's watched a sci-fi movie has seen examples of the tomatoes that are up in space on the space station. And so there's space tomatoes. There's all sorts of different ways of growing it. So saying it's a fruit or a vegetable is different. And then, there's vegetable, or I guess you could say produce, that kind of probably falls in its own third category, right? Which is neither a fruit nor a vegetable. And that goes back to what I was saying before about this, this new category we're working on, which is out there to kind of, replace things like, the meat industry and things like that. We haven't quite pinpointed what it's going to look like yet, but we're working on that.
Now, I didn't think that the classification for a tomato was based on where it's grown. That's what you seem to be implying here, is that if it's in space, it could be considered a vegetable versus the underground. But it's the matter of the germination. It's the fact that there's a seed inside of it that makes it a fruit.
That makes sense that it would be a vegetable if it was in space. Right.
No, because we're talking about a seed, right? We're talking about the seed grows inside. That's the delineation for a fruit.
I don't
know. A potato
that,
doesn't have a seed inside.
I don't know that it's the location geographically speaking. It's the location of, is it above soil? Is it below soil? Is it in an environment that is in space where there's zero oxygen? These are the things that we're working to study, right?
I read an article recently about how the shipping industry is really putting pressure on scientists to figure out a way to make produce square.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the Minecraft mentality where it ships so much easier if, you can fit 20 oranges in this box or 25 if they're square.
We can do it. There's no question about it. And we've done it. They just want us to start
is there money
making it that way. The problem is that, a lot of people don't realize this, but shape for vegetables and fruits really does impact flavor a lot. And just from a psychological standpoint also, right? Biting into a nice round orange, like we were saying, tastes delicious. You peel the orange and inside there's these wonderful segments that are, again, spherical in nature on the sides. But once you start eating square oranges, although convenience of not rolling away, they don't have the same crisp sweetness as a round orange does. And
so like the corners trap impurities. Like that's what I think of. Is
you
like
get a lot more rind on square oranges. I know square tomatoes are the same. They're a lot more fragile than normal tomatoes, and we know how easily they bruise. Obviously, with corner, they almost turn out round after the shipping process anyway.
We've talked a lot about vegetation as far as what we eat and consume, but let's talk about the things that sort of are affecting our planet on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, absolutely.
Obviously, climate change is a huge issue. Mm-hmm. Are we working on any kind of super plants that will help take that back?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the first thing I think about into what you're talking about is, yes, there are some super plants, but the big thing is that we are trying to do in my industry is save the plants that we've got today. A lot of people don't know that just because of temperatures changing, there's a lot of endangered plants out there. Just like an elephant might be endangered, there's maybe 4 types of a certain raisin plant, And so
like
there's
a grapevine. Right, that's what you mean when you say raisin.
I mean, yeah, I've always heard it on the raisin plant.
Right.
No, you heard it on the grapevine.
You get
the song is I heard it through the grapevine.
I think you're getting confused.
I think you're getting a little confused, JJ.
Grapevines there are raisins that come from grapes, but there are also raisins that come from their own vines, right? We're always trying to take out steps of the process. Make it easier.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if we can create a raisin
when it comes to raisin plants, though, I mean, how many raisin plants can you even fit in on a hectare of land? Because when I think
quite a few raisins are smaller than grapes,
But how big is the plant itself though, compared to the raisin? I mean, I think of
it's very large. Yeah, it's not convenient. That's why you're not hearing about raisin vineyards and things like that. It's the plants. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of strain on the farmers to get in there and pick the raisins.
How much in your daily work life deals with genetics like this? I mean, you hear in hemp production that there's always new strains coming out, and I'm beginning to hear that with other plants, culinary plants.
Yep.
So are you working on any particular strains right now, or do you have any of your own that are out there?
To JJ's earlier question about the super plants and things, right? We are focusing here up in the Midwest on trying, every region's focusing on their own things. We're trying to come up with certain plants that would be considered super plants for our area, right? I think the big thing for the Midwest right now, and we've seen it with these last couple blizzards and storms up here, is that, where the temperature is changing, things are getting colder, we're getting more snow, and it's getting just more intense, and that does infect plants as well. Most of the plants that are up here are okay to live up here. They freeze, they thaw, they regrow. But I think what we're trying to do is come up with plants that can benefit us as a community up in this area. If we can come up with plants that maybe give off heat, that plants that can help to, imagine if you could put some plants down around your home that would help to remove snow for you as it starts to get to a certain temperature just because of the heat they gave off, right? Imagine if our roads... we all know, and they talk about it all the time, there's a blizzard about the trucks that come by and them using sugar beets now to thaw the roads now. And we're looking at new ways to even go further beyond that. Is there perhaps a material that we can coat our roads with that's plant-based?
Is there a slippery slope there, though? Because we're talking about, plants that combust. So when you're adding combustion to a plant... I mean,
there's always
what sort of speed bumps have you had on the road to making?
There's always a slippery slope with science, right?
Sure.
There's always going to be these things.
The coulda versus shoulda.
Yeah, and look, we can't be, as scientists, it's my job to not be frightened of what could happen, right? Because we'll never get to the science. We'll never proceed as a culture, as unless we test the waters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, have there been issues where maybe a plant has caused some destruction in a lab, right? And let me tell you what, fire spreads very quickly in botany labs, very quickly. But we've learned from those. We've learned what not to do, and we've learned what works, And so there's a lot of things like that up here besides just giving off heat. We're looking to...
Do plants have muscles?
There are some plants that have muscles,
Like
right?
the type of thing where, like, if I pushed a plant over and it feels that like bend and stretch and it comes back. So like if I spent 20 minutes every day just pushing this plant, would it get stronger?
Yeah. You're talking about two different things. One, you're talking about, do plants have, do they react with their bodies to things and tense up and things like that? Yes. There's plenty of plants out there that have vines that can curl up quickly when touched. But then the second thing you're talking about is, do plants just feel in general? And absolutely, the answer to that is yes.
So would I be bullying a plant then?
No question
my
about
description?
It. No question about it. Yeah. We've done tests where, if this is obviously a bit extreme, but if we have two examples, room A filled with plants and B, same plants in both, and daily our scientists walk into room A and shout absurdity, just cruel comments at the plants. Mm-hmm. And then they walk into B and say nice things like, you guys are looking lovely today. Good job growing. Boy, I love the oxygen you're producing. Things like that. And what the results are. And you'll find that in room A, a lot of those plants, especially if they're like fruits and vegetables, they taste really bitter. Some of them just stifle and die. In the B room, where there's wonderful things are said, obviously they produce larger fruits and vegetables. Some of them actually go on to some of the bushes and things like that will actually go on to produce their own smaller bushes and things, almost like families, right? So they're experiencing joy at the end of the day.
So in the question of, is it nature versus nurture, you're saying with plants, it's actually almost entirely nurture.
Oh, well, they're a product of their environment. They can't move, right? Like with humans, right? If you're in a family that you don't like so much, when you get to a certain age, you can move out, right? You can do your own thing. Plants are stuck in the dirt. So they're very much a product of their environment. Sure. Very much.
I do have a question. You talked about the bee room. So hive collapse has been a huge issue, and it must directly affect plant life.
I meant the letter A and the letter B.
Right. I'm just trying to segue into this.
Sure.
Obviously, your work in botany, you must have somebody who's an apiist, I believe, is a beekeeper. And are you working hand in hand, or are those two industries that rely on each other but don't necessarily talk? Hatfield and McCoy type situation.
It's actually, it is a little bit more of the latter. I don't know how much I want to talk about this here, but I will say that there's a reason why bees are not around as much lately, and we, for the past maybe 25 years, bees have made things difficult for people in my job. Other scientists, they've taken, to be honest, they've taken jobs away. And so, there's tension there in the community between, I guess, the scientists in my field and the beekeeper community. And I understand that it's nature as well, but it's different. It is different, and so, I don't know. It gets tense when I start thinking about that, thinking about it. But I'll just put it this way. There's a reason why bees are disappearing. Okay. And, if I can just say it, we're, some of us out there who are working with the plants, we're just kind of tired of it. We're tired of the,
So you working on a self-pollinating plant then? Is that the idea?
Yeah, absolutely.
The argument we usually get from the pro-bee lobby is that how else are you going to make all of these without
without
us.
Of course, that's what they're trying to sell you bees, right? We need the bees. We get where the bees go. We need the bees to make the plants.
Well, I mean, I keep bees. I got a bee hive up in Hillsboro. My father-in-law got it, and we enjoy the honey. And I mean, his plants have really thrived last couple of years. The wildflowers around their farmstead have been just amazing.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that about you. That's interesting.
Well, I mean, with
Obviously,
all of us, you
and,
dig back into our
that's-
family history, you're going to find a beekeeper somewhere.
Well, yeah, but
Right.
you'll find plants. You'll find plants as well, right? You'll find plants. Look,
You're probably descended from a beekeeper somewhere in your lineage.
absolutely not. I guarantee you that it would never be possible.
What? Just out of curiosity, what is your lineage? I'm Scottish. Tucker's got some Scot in him. He's got some Irish.
I have some Irish as well. I think there's some Norwegian. But I just know that my family, growing up, we didn't like to be around bees. Okay, so I'm getting a little uncomfortable.
We don't have to
with
stay
some
on
of
this
this.
topic.
It's just,
We can.
what's funny is that, again, this is our human nature. We're greedy. We want what's best for us as humans. We want to have your toast in the morning with some honey or your tea, right? I'm sure that, that's something that's beneficial to you. And bees are cute. Oh, let's make an animated film about a bee with Jerry Seinfeld. That's great, right? It sells stuff, but it's disgusting. They're taking jobs from botanists who can easily, also make the plants. And I think it's selfish of humans to, I honestly think it's selfish because you want to have some sweetener in your tea to take the sides of bees, right? It's just, I don't know. And you know what else is, it's like, how come you never hear from that community, the bee community, talking about like, oh, we're working with bees that won't disrupt the plants. We're working with bees, they have their own geneticists. They could easily be coming up with bees that maybe don't have wings, that have to walk, right? Or bees that maybe are not prone to go to plants. Maybe they're colorblind bees. I don't know. We know the science is there. Mm-hmm. It seems that community doesn't want to take the action. It seems like they're stuck on the road that they want. And again, they want to sell honey.
Sure.
Fine.
Sure.
Okay. But it's frustrating. Again, if we were talking about human beings today, let's just say that there would be people locked up in prison. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's what it would be. Mm-hmm. But because they're plants, because they're helpless, they can't talk. I'm sorry. I get worked up.
It's okay. I recently was talking to a friend of mine and his business, very culture focused.
Sure.
They're trying a new thing where this summer they're going to grow produce inside of their break room. And the idea is that they'll get rid of the vending machine in exchange for, they'll make, they'll grow a quarter acre of corn or something like that.
Yeah.
And my first thought was like, well, it takes longer than a day to grow a stalk of corn. What are you going to do? You're going to keep the vending machine there until it's ready to harvest, and then.
Well, that's not entirely true. There are, again, it's there. If they know what they're doing, they could probably get the food to come pretty quick. And if they're planting the right things, they could get. I don't know if maybe,
but that's not their job though. It's like no one's concentrating on growing the stuff in the break room.
Well, then they need to hire someone that does for that. If they want to make it.
It's a .com, okay. So I can see where. I see where you're coming from. Like you hire a gardener to come in and take care of the plants that are alive in your
And if
lobby.
you're planting the right things, like berries, obviously you can go in there and pick a couple berries each day, and that could be your lunch.
But is that enough to feed an entire office building, though? Like what happens if Jane walks in there and she's got low blood sugar and she eats all the berries off the bush, and I come in an hour later and I didn't have my honey toast in the morning, as you so aptly put?
It seems to me that would fall to the responsibility of the owners of the business to decide what needs to be done with this Jane. If she is, taking more than her share, if she is again taking all the fruit off the plant without some form of consent, that's also an issue. There's a lot of things about that, but I will say again,
their office is also outside, like on the outskirts of San Francisco.
Yeah,
and it's one of those like open air, so a lot of
windows
and stuff like
for
that.
The plants.
But like, what about bears?
Well,
you're growing a berry bush.
Yeah.
Don't you think you're going to attract some? I guess that's my point. Is like plants attract other animals. We're animals. We're attracted to plants.
Yeah.
And so what are we doing to help with the survival of species of plants that have constantly been eaten over the years?
Yeah. So there's a I guess a group within the botanist field that's kind of become known as extreme botany, which is really aligned to a lot of that, right, into the global warming and stuff. And it's the job of a lot of these botanists, and God bless them, to kind of go out there and find these rare plants, find the plants that are either in danger of being eaten by animals or just not surviving harsh temperatures, collect them, unearth them, put them in a pot. And then, we've got a facility that's in Colorado in the Rockies that we're kind of putting together you could call it like a...
Doomsday?
I wouldn't say doomsday. Look at it as it's more of like a catalog.
Like a Bloomsday?
We're not really... I don't know that we're anticipating some sort of end scenario. We're just wanting to make sure that everything's kept safe, right? Look at it more like an arc for plants. Right?
Have you been to this facility?
Oh, one time,
What's it like?
It is very green, obviously. It smells beautiful inside. On the outside, obviously, it looks like a mountain, but when you walk in through the security and the gates, and once they've badged you in, it's very open. I mean, imagine like 12 Costco's all together. Mm-hmm. They've got the same kind of metalling as Costco, actually. There's forklifts going back and forth, and but then it's just rows and rows of different types of plants.
Kind of sounds like the facility from Independence Day that they go to.
What do you mean, the holiday?
No, like
the facility from
the movie Independence Day, the Will Smith movie.
I don't know that movie. What do you mean?
Okay, well then it's not going to make any. It's not going to make any sense then to reference that, but that's pretty much the same idea.
Actually, I mean, if you're referencing a movie, I would say like at the end of Indiana Jones, the facility where the art.
But that's not in a mountain though. That's just like in a big giant warehouse.
Was it in a mountain or was it not in a mountain?
It was not in a mountain.
No, I know that, but I'm saying the interior looked like that.
Oh, okay. Instead of just a giant warehouse.
Instead of crates, it's greenery.
Okay, so Indiana Jones.
I just want to end with this, by the way. There's some crazy stuff in there, like stuff that America would flip over if they saw. I mean,
really?
Yeah, I can't really talk about a lot of it, but like it would change a lot of industries. People would get excited. People would get mad. People would get scared. I think there are some stuff that's a little uneasy to look at when you see it grown. I mean, imagine if we were able to do, prosthetics in a way, not prosthetics, but actually like getting,
like regrowth,
like imagine you lost your hand, overseas in the army, and we have the ability now with plants to do that, right? That's about all I can say.
To regrow.
But I just know that when you're walking through the facility, you see some things that are in that environment a little uneasy.
Like a baby's foot.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
I don't know that it appear like for that example, they appear as baby's feet, but it's just not full grown yet. Mm-hmm. So
where's the state of cactus technology right now in your industry?
Yeah. Cactus technology has not really evolved in probably about 15 years.
Really?
Primarily it's just like they're difficult to work with, right? I think most botanists just don't want to deal with it.
What would happen if you plucked all of the needles off of a cacti?
Well, I don't think you can do that. Most cactuses needles are on the cactus, like they can't be removed. So I don't know that I understand the question. You mean like clip them?
Sure.
Like clip them off?
Yeah.
Well,
can't you pluck them out? Like,
no,
they don't. It's not like a porcupine where, like, if I sat on a cactus, there wouldn't be stuff inside of, like, on my skin.
No, absolutely not. No, they are on there. I mean, it's like nails on a board. Really, they're attached. They're in there. You can't. I mean,
So like every
But-
movie I've ever seen where they're
Totally made up. That's Hollywood.
pluck, pluck.
Hollywood's view on plants is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that's, I mean, the general consensus from most botanists is like, don't deal with cactus. It's a pain, literally. You get poked. You can't, again, even clipping the needles is difficult because they're really hard. And to be honest, they're known as being a stubborn plant. They're known, I mean, that's why they, I think, have their exterior is a lot of plants, their exteriors reflect what it's like to work with them. Just like human beings, right? If you see a human walking down the street who's, I don't know, maybe unkept with their clothing and stuff, they're a little lazy, right? But if you got a plant that's got the thorns, that they're difficult to work with. That they're probably not going to, be kind in terms of the gene splicing. Maybe they've just generally got a bad attitude. You've got berry plants, which produce fruit. Usually they're big, they're open, they're wide, they spread out, they grow very quickly. That's kind of a joyful plant. And then, I'm trying to think of a good example of maybe
I think the reason why I ask is that because just like you said, it's been stagnant for about 15 years. And I feel the same way about cacti as I feel about inkjet printers, in that we haven't had a really good renaissance and change in that technology. And so, if you could right now wave a magic wand and make some leaps forward in cactus technology, what would you like to see? Because maybe it's just that no one is really verbalizing the obvious changes that we need in cactus technology.
We are very aware that we need the changes. There's a lot of scientists that want it, but again, it's the plants, right? They're stubborn. They don't want to work with us. But like I personally would love to see some cactuses that were more fruit producing. I'd love to see some cactuses that were that produce some various shapes that were, used for, obviously our defense program is a big thing. If we can take a natural element that a plant is producing and somehow equip it for humanity without altering the state of the plant too much. So how can we create a mobile version of a cactus?
No, you're really speaking to why I disagree with the Trump administration's push to not use a cactus wall on the southern border. Because that seems obvious. You just plant all the seeds,
right,
and you just grow it right there. Right. I mean, how else can you can't like put a ladder against a bunch of cactuses and crawl over. You're still going to get spines.
Yeah.
Well, no. Again, you wouldn't get spines. Apparently, you just get poked.
Yeah, but you'd still be getting the business end of those spines, right? You're still getting hurt.
Yeah, it would hurt. It wouldn't feel good. But I think, again, this is like, in that scenario, what we're looking at is like using cactus. We don't know what their view is on immigration.
You could really say that the cactus is the bee of the plant world.
Where'd you go to college?
Concordia. But the one that's in California.
Oh, yeah, Concordia Plant College. That's right.
Yeah. And so
it's near San Diego.
Yep.
So you went to CPCC?
Concordia Plant College
of
California, CPCC. But we don't use, there's not,
You didn't get a ring though, huh?
Well, we don't have a sports team. It's all botanists.
I thought people went to Concordia got that ring when you graduated. Is this so not affiliated with the Concordia we have in Moorhead at all?
No, it's a different Concordia.
It's not like franchised out.
Yeah.
That's the Concordia in Moorhead is part of a larger like firm of Concordias. It's like it's like Best Buy.
This is different. It's Concord, like the grape. Concord.
It's Concordia.
Right.
I see.
And so, it's a different affiliation from that. And so
your degree is in botany, but do you have a specialization?
Yeah. Well, plant, we've talked a lot about genetics. So I am a particular focus in genetics, which deals on the genetic modification of plants with like humans, and I guess it's called plant or phylogenosis, which is really the idea of what can we take, oftentimes we're trying to see like, how can we take plants and bring them to humans, right? How can the idea of, like I said earlier, growing a baby foot on a plant. And what we're trying to do is how can we take human stuff and apply it to plants? So how can I create like legs for a plant so the plant becomes mobile, right? How can I create maybe fingers on the plant, not human fingers, plant fingers, so a plant can reach for its own watering can.
Do you see, like, at one point in our history, like, I'll walk out to a farm and there will be acres and acres of plants that grow hair, like all their hair is long and flowing for like the wig industry.
I think you're going to see two things maybe in 25 years, let's say. You'll walk out to a farm, and there will be farms everywhere, obviously, different farms producing different things. But what you're going to see is you're going to see farms. You'll see one particular farm that's growing, like you said, maybe human hair. Maybe it's growing appendages, arms, legs, things like that. What you'll also notice is you'll notice that there will not be any human workers at this plant farm. It will be plants walking down the fields and picking. It will be plants walking down the fields. It will be plants walking down the fields and picking the appendages, right? Watering the other plants.
So this plant is aware enough that it can do a task.
Yeah,
so at that point, aren't we just talking about slavery?
No, obviously we're going to be.
Are you paying the plants?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is the plants that are working these farms are going to have elected to do it. We're not just going to raise plants and say, all of these plants must work the farm, right? This could be a plant that's come from, the East Coast on another farm, and it's decided that it likes this, right? I mean, just as well, some other plants that are mobile may go off to, fight our overseas battles for us, right?
Different plants observe different holidays, so you got to make sure you respect that, like on the annual calendar.
We can't say
in 25 years.
We can't say what type of culture plants will have in 25 years. I can't predict the future on that front. I can only tell you what plants will be capable of doing, right? They'll be capable of working the farms for us. They'll be capable of, in the morning, pulling off berries from themselves and putting it in your cereal for you. And that's the idea, right? Is we want to get to a place where, as humans and plants, we are cohesive. We're working together. Again, by allowing plants their own freedom, I think we'll produce more. We'll see. Imagine if 30 years ago, when those steamrollers and trucks are rolling into the rainforests, if those plants could have moved, right? If they could have gotten up and just moved over a little bit,
right,
so they could have the land, right?
But they weren't. They were going for the resources, not just the land, though.
Right. Well, imagine if they could have moved, right? The fight they could have put up, right? We would have a lot more.
Sure.
Elon Musk says that the future is synthetic, and what it sounds like I'm hearing you saying is that the future is photosynthetic.
Yeah, I would say so. To be honest, I think that both are correct. I think that, in 25 years, we have one future. In 50 years, we probably got a mix of both. And we probably got some, there's probably some darkness in our future as well, in terms of like where we're headed. The damage has been done at this point to how we've treated plants. And they don't forget this. It's, one plant comes from another plant, and they share those memories. There's a reason why your food doesn't taste as good as it used to. There's a reason why, there's a reason why Christmas trees are dying a lot quicker after the holidays.
Less access to generational wealth.
Yeah. And just, a long systematic history of being treated poorly,
So if we're talking about a plant that it's mobile, it is able to do things, we're talking about a greater water consumption, if I'm not mistaken. And we all know that water is the next major global crisis. Do we really want to be creating plants that are going to require more water when we will eventually? I mean, are we looking at the Third World War water between the plants? That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. No,
if in 50 years we might have a plant-based president.
That will never happen. Not in this country.
Are you sure?
We've never had one before.
Doesn't mean we can't have one later.
I don't know.
I don't know. That's a little close-minded, I think.
At least a vice president.
We'll have a bee president.
Someone's going to run on the Green Party.
President.
Excuse me.
We will have a bee president before we have a plant president, I think.
In 25 years, I dare you to find a bee on this planet. I dare you to find a bee.
What about like wasps and yellow jackets? They aren't collecting and pollinating. They're just assholes.
I love a good wasp, but yes, you're right. Complete assholes.
Mm-hmm. So are you looking at maybe adding wasp characteristics into plants? Seems like a cactus and a wasp
the
could go
book
hand
is
in.
wide
Imagine
open.
a cactus that could fly.
We are. Oh yeah, I've imagined it. I've imagined the idea, but I mean, not how you probably are thinking, right? Like putting wings on a plant sounds great, but I'm more interested in getting the plant able to step into a helicopter, right? And controlling it. If you've got a plant that has the ability to take over control, that's a smart plant. If you've got a plant that's a drone with wings on it, flying around like a bee, it's just doing what a bee does, right? And we don't want that. We want plants that are smart. They're able to, make wise decisions, But going back to your earlier question about this whole World War thing and water, I think generally speaking, if we were able to ask any plant and have that open dialogue, we would all agree that we all do need water, all of us, and it's something that we can all agree on that is important. And I think that really one of the big focuses is how can we, take what we know of plants growing, what we know of humans, right? Where the intersection of both these fields of growing plants that produce human appendages, growing plants that produce their own appendages. How can we take all of this together and create a new form of growth and apply that type of knowledge to water, right? How can we essentially at the end of the day grow more water, right? How can I put water somewhere and see more of it come back?
Right.
If you went through the public school system in this country, at least if you were born after the year 1980, part of the required reading list was R.L. Stein's Goosebumps, Stay Out of the Basement.
Yes.
It's a phenomenal morality tale.
I can see that cover.
And the question I raised then is that not a signal toward a more preferable or alternate future where it's not sentient plants themselves, but plant-human hybrids? And where is that technology right now?
I think that what you'll find if you dig into a lot of the Goosebumps books is that a lot of it is, and it's fairly well known, I think, in the botanist community, that there's a lot of propaganda written into those books for, people that oppose what we're studying. And while it could be interpreted by some as being a positive thing, really at the end of the day, that book, that particular storyline, I think is meant to create fear. Just the title alone, Stay Out of the Basement, right? Opposed to go into the basement, research. And I think a lot of, again, this comes from, it's the beekeepers, it's the, it's those out there that are, it's the dirt industry. A lot of the ones that oppose plants and what we're trying to do, I think have probably, R.L. Stein is not a real name, right? That's not a real author, right? And it's an amalgam of marketing, really, is what those books are.
Right. Just like the word orange isn't what it actually is. It's sort of the non de plume of the fruit. I don't know what the base fruit is actually called.
Hold on, wait. I want to go back to this R.L. Stein thing real quick. Those books are based off of like real experiences. My cousin was the basis for Night of the Living Dummy. He still gets a check once a year for like $50.
Oh, so you're saying that they're not necessarily propaganda, that they are lifted from real life.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes, the stories might be based off of truth, but I think that they are probably written and skewed in such a way as to create fear, right?
No, it's pretty much like exactly what happened to my cousin.
That might be the case, but right, your cousin's probably a little afraid of, wooden dummies at this point, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, right? I would be if I went through something like that. But that's the key, right? Where does
Well, then what do you tell?
Where does a wooden dummy come from?
Well, then
how do you produce a wooden dummy? Trees, right?
But then what do you tell the young child whose experience is that his father turned into a plant-human hybrid in the basement? I mean, that sounds traumatic. How do you spin that for that kid?
I said this at the top of the interview. Mistakes happen in these labs. We go down dark corners. Hopefully we learn, right? And I guarantee that the family that experienced that in the basement, they learned some things, right? We can't stop ourselves from progressing. Otherwise, let
me ask you this. Plants evolve on their own. Why are we trying to be the effort that that tries to re-energize or encourage? Why not let plants just evolve on their own?
My daughter will evolve on her own. She'll learn on her own. But if I can teach her, if I can guide her, if I can move her along quicker so that she can become more than what she just can on her own, why wouldn't I want to do that, right? If I can do that to plants, if I can do that to, anything, we as a culture should want to do that. And so, yeah, sometimes that means going down to the basement and doing your own experiments and turning yourself into a half-based plant creature. Then, these are risks we have to take. But, what's funny is after every R.L. Stein story about botany gone wrong or, wooden toys that attack kids or monster blood or anything like that is, for every one of those stories, there's a good 5 or 10 stories that's the opposite, right? And that's what's frustrating is that we look at the fear out there and we take the fear, but nobody's looking at those plants with the baby feet on them and thinking about the families that now have plant baby feet on their babies.
I think of paleobotanist Dr. Ellie Grant.
Paleo, like the diet?
Like the era. Paleobotanist.
Yep, got it.
And her discovery of those plants on Isla Nublar and the genetic research that had been going on there and how we lost hundreds of lives because of man trying to play God.
We shouldn't have been there, though, in the first place. We knew going to that island that we should not have been there. Okay, that was not...
Are you saying that the plants now own the island?
They've owned that island for years, okay? And we have had clear signs. We've had messages that have been sent to us that said, this is a refuge, right? Do not come here. There's a reason those plants have ended up on that island, and we've known that.
What kind of messages?
I don't know how many times, some science, that's the problem. When scientists have all the signs, when they've learned from being in the basement and they still go back to the basement, okay, and do the same, that's a definition of crazy, is doing the same thing over and over again. So when you have scientists going out to that island and doing those things, what can you expect? The plants are going to do things, okay? People are going to die, and it's a tragedy. Why are you laughing at that?
I'm sorry. I don't think that we need to let people die in the pursuit of knowledge.
Well, hold on. Let's do a cost-benefit analysis here. I mean, what amount of human death and suffering do you think gets us to the flying cactus?
There's going to be, I don't know, I guess for a change of that magnitude, you have to expect at least maybe 50 scientists somewhere along the line are going to give up their lives to get that information.
There's no other industry that would allow that. There's no other industry.
You are absolutely out of your mind if you think that's the case.
Even the gun industry, which will occasionally test on each other.
Do you have any idea how many people have died at the Coca-Cola factories across America?
What?
You don't get a recipe like that without losing some people.
It is kind of like being a World War I fighter pilot. 20 of you are going up and maybe 5 of you are coming back down, but it's for a greater good. I mean, is
Right.
that kind of the
problem is,
mentality?
JJ, is that you fit into a category of humans that are comfortable with their life, and they don't want to know about this stuff, but they want to be able to open their gifts on Christmas morning and get the newest technology and all of that, and not know what goes behind it. Okay, and not know about the negative impact that is experienced from human lives. But guess what?
I'm pretty sure when they built an iPod, people didn't starve to death.
I don't know much about Apple. Okay, I can't speak on behalf of how they run their business, and whether or not it seems like a good corporation. They
Does
make
it?
great products? I can tell you that if you open up your iPod or your iPhone, there are some plant-based pieces to that product. Okay, and again, I can tell you that in the industry we have had to create those plant-based mechanical pieces of your phone, people have died.
Okay. Well, we're getting close to the time we got to wrap this up.
I'm getting a little frustrated.
I'm frustrated as well. I don't know
That's good. This
why
is
you
healthy.
even contacted us to be on this podcast, because you're promoting your own podcast on the side. And it seems like I listened to an episode of that, and all it seems to be is you yelling and then someone not responding, which I can only imagine is another plant, that you're interviewing a plant that's not speaking.
You're not hearing, you're not listening, clearly. And that's the problem, right? That's why my podcast exists, by the way.
I like
Is
listening to lily pads and liars. I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but I mean, I've never heard a podcast that does true crime that's only about plant-based true crime. I mean, that's a niche within a niche that's not being served anywhere.
I personally am a little obsessed with that kind of stuff. I just think it's fascinating about seeing how, like, the dark side of everything has a dark side, right? And where plants have gone too far and where humans have gone too far, and where, again, there's an intersection there.
And bees, like, plants do some stuff
Don't
that's
bring
not cool, and bees do some stuff that isn't cool.
Well, yes, agreed. The difference is that one is good and one is bad. At the end of the day, like, we need plants, bees we don't need. Okay, we just don't need it. I can make honey off of a plant. Okay, I can make honey. I can make plants that drip honey for you if you want your crackers and honey. But a bee can't produce grapes or raisin vines.
Let's wrap this up with what I think we're leading to here, which is you envision the research being done under the ground, above the ground, and in space in our lifetime will yield a real life Jolly Green Giant. A plant-based man with the power of plants, but also the power of man.
You're asking me?
I'm saying, is that where we're leading to? Is that what you're implying here?
So
A man who can scoop his hand into the field and take a whole fucking thing of corn and pull off the niblets.
Will they be as handsome as the Jolly Green Giant? Probably not, right? I mean, obviously that's marketing. But will they be able to, like you said, scoop down into the earth, pull up the giblets? Yeah, absolutely. That's the hope. That's the dream. That's what we're aspiring to. That's what, 5-year-old Chris with his chemistry set in the backyard with the carrots and the potatoes and the tomatoes, pouring chemicals on top of them, was hoping to achieve, was saying, how can we make these leaps and bounds so that we as humans, that they as plants can live together in harmony. We don't have issues like the island, debacle, and I think once we get to that place where they're able to move, where there is this plant man society, I think that we'll all find that it benefits everybody at that point. And so
Dr. Chris Davenport, if you want to find more on his studies, You just need to go to his website, davenport.au, and
Check out his podcast. Is it every 2 weeks or every week? Lily Pads and Liars.
Right now it's every 2 weeks. We're I have to do a little bit more research on some upcoming episodes, but we're looking to go weekly.
Well, if you're looking for your true plant crime fix for the week, check that out.
How did you get funded by Tom Hanks's foundation?
There's a lot of celebrities out there that are big into what we're doing. And he particularly has he's a big fan of plants and what we're studying. And so I think, I had just reached out to him personally and kind of told him my story. I sent him a couple episodes of my podcast, and I don't know, he attached to it. So we'll see. He's a great guy. And there's a couple other celebrities out there that are pretty integrated into the community as well.
Well, it's pretty impressive to get $100,000 from the Let's Give Hanks Foundation.
Yes. I do know stipulations say that we're not really supposed to mention out loud the amount. And so, I'd appreciate you not telling other people of what it was, but
we'll make sure, Tucker, would you edit that out?
Is it all right if I plug something real quick, by
Sure.
the way? I will be at the, at Zambros, in about a month. I think February 12th, signing copies of my newest plant book, which is, kind of essentially just my own journey into becoming a scientist. And so if people want to stop by, I'll be down there signing copies. I'm bringing along a couple plant samples for people to take a look at. And we may even do a live podcast down there as well. So I'd love for anybody to come down. I'll be in front of Zambros.
So you're not going to be in Zambros, you're going to be in front of it?
Yeah. I'm not in Zambros. Sorry. I'm in front of Zambros. I'll have my table set up there. And there were some complications with Zambros. We were supposed to be in Zambros initially, but couldn't do that. But they'll be able to find us. Just come to that area. I'll be there. You can't miss me. I'll be down there.
And bundle up, I guess, because it's outside in February.
Yeah, it'll be cold, but we'll have...
Will you be signing people's plants if they bring those?
No, that would be... Unless they've got some sort of... if it's the right kind of plant,
like a tree.
Bananas seem to be okay with getting signed, I think, because of the...
Are you signing the inside or the peel?
The peel, right?
What color?
Of signing
Something that's going
marker?
to show up, like a silver. So
I actually just use like the back end of a spoon on a banana. So the bruising of the peel does it, right? That's more of an organic signature on it. And that's how you know the banana's okay with it.
Great. Well, our guest has been Chris Davenport. It's always nice to see a new face in here. So thanks, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right. Hey, well, thanks for coming in. That was a great interview. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been hard to kind of get the word out about some of the stuff we're doing, but
I can tell. And thanks to your kids for making all these cheeseburgers for us too. I'm really excited.
Absolutely. I know that you guys are hungry and you're up here recording all day, so eat up.
That's a lot of kids too. Was that like 7 kids?
Yes.
Is it just
7.
them, or are they all your kids?
Yeah.
Hold on one second. Nope, there's 9 kids out there. Did they add some more?
I think one of them was a friend of Jeremy's from next door that came. But yeah. We have I have quite a few children. And the you get lonely in this line of work, really. So if you can make something to give yourself some peace during the day, that's good. So it's nice to have the company around, and they're able to help out a lot with what I'm doing. They carry the table for the podcast and the signings and stuff like that. And
I don't mean to be rude, but like 2 of them look like they're really jaundiced.
They're fine. They're fine.
Looks like you're going to say that's their choice.
Yeah. It's probably because they haven't had anything to drink in a while. And around this time of year, the temperatures we don't get a lot of sunlight. So, even you and I, right? If we don't get the sunlight, it affects us start to break out. So
Well, that's really cute. They're making little bee costumes out of all those toilet paper rolls we just left up there.
those are not bee costumes. They are mummies. They're being mummies, probably. Jeremy, watch your sister. Tell her to knock it off with that. So, yeah. Anyway, look, appreciate it, guys. You know, if you are...
Thanks for coming in. We'll let you know once
Happy
we
to
release
come
the
in
episode. It'll be on probably a Friday or two from now.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love it. I'd love to come back maybe next time and bring some of my plants with me. I notice your studio is fairly empty. And
I don't.
not a lot of greenery in here.
I mean, we're trying really hard not to get the same guest over and over again. So
Yeah,
if
but it's not a
there's-
problem for me. I mean, I can...
You've got fresh material every time.
I feel like we just just started getting into it. There's a lot of things we can talk about.
I mean, I wouldn't mind interviewing one of your kids.
A lot of it's going to depend on the response we get from this.
My kids don't like to talk. Well, yeah, you'll get a good response.
It's going to depend
I
on
guarantee
crowd
it.
response because a very large portion of our listening audience are bees. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out. But you know what? We lean into uncomfortable moments like this on the show all the time. And
Look,
I think
I get
that's
it.
one of the things that sets us
I
apart.
get it. You got to create content that's edgy, and so you want to push your guests. Okay, I get it. You want to stir the pot up a little bit, but this bee stuff and the whole, that whole hour of dropping bee stuff. Okay, I don't come in here and drop things like This American Life to you guys. Okay, so knock it off.
What's that?
This American Life. It's a very large podcast, very popular.
I've never heard of it.
Okay,
Well, listen, I know you got a long drive back to Jamestown, so
yeah, I do. Okay, guys.
yeah. Okay. Bye.
Oh my God.
Jesus Christ.
Why did we let him in?
I don't know. He reached out to you?
No, I thought he reached out to Jill.
No.
I thought you said he was Jill's cousin.
Okay, so here's what I was to understand, okay? So Jill told me that her cousin had reached out to you, but she didn't know this guy. She asked her mom, she asked her aunt. And so I thought you had booked him and you found out, and I was like, Jill who? Not Jill the wife.
Like, I was trying to not get too offended by the things he was saying, and you know what? I have to admit my own part. I definitely tried to press the gas on a little bit once I realized that he had all of this bee phobia, but I don't know, man. Like I'm struggling with whether we even release this episode or not.
I don't know. I mean, the whole time he was sitting there and the way he just stares at you through those bifocals felt like I was having my soul sucked out a little bit. And also,
Right.
why was he checking his phone the whole time?
I know. Let's just throw it out there. We'll put it on a Friday and, hopefully.
Well, it can't be any worse than that guy who wanted to invent that new type of kitty litter.
Yeah, that's true. I still haven't cleaned the carpet from that spot.
Jeez, I have a friend request from him already. A huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring this podcast. Folks, if you're looking to buy or sell a home, contact Natalie Deutsch today because Natalie Deutsch is not only a previous podcast guest, she's somebody who's going to care enough to sell your property for top dollar. She's also going to find you the best price possible if you're purchasing a new home. Last year on average, Natalie earned her clients $4,000 over list price on their homes and sold them faster than the market average. On average, Natalie's selling a home every 3.74 days. That's 2 homes a week. Those numbers don't lie. Find out why Natalie is one of the top agents in this entire market. Get a hold of her today, Natalie at hatchrealtyfm.com. You can also call 701-388-9338 or go on to livefargomoorhead.com. That's livefargomoorhead.com. Read all of her amazing reviews and then listen to her episode of JJ Meets World. Thanks again to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode of JJ Meets World and would like to help us continue to produce 2 new episodes every week, you can donate to our Patreon. Check out patreon.com/JJ Meets World and donate today. Even as little as $1 a month can go a long way. Visit our website at www.jjmeetsworld.com or hit up our social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites the kids are using these days. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, go to linebenders.com, and you can find direct contact info for JJ. I'll be damned, there is a raisin plant.